Only 9 people witnessed what happened inside that room. 9. No cameras, no reporters, no crowd screaming from bleachers. Just 4 men in a private training hall in Hong Kong, the year 1972, and a silence so thick it pressed against the walls like something alive. 3 of those men walked in with reputations forged over decades, championships, lineages, titles passed down through bloodlines older than the buildings they trained in. They had students, temples, followers. They had names that commanded rooms. And then there was Bruce Lee. He walked in without a title belt, without a formal ranking, without even a full night's sleep. He had just finished a 16-hour filming day on Enter the Dragon. His clothes still carried the smell of set lights and stage sweat. And yet, when it was over, when the dust had settled inside that closed training hall, 3 grandmasters left without speaking. Not from defeat in the way wars end, from something harder to explain. Something that visits you later in the dark, when you're lying awake wondering how a man who weighed 135 pounds could make everything you spent 30 years building feel suddenly fragile. This is that story, and almost no one knows it happened. To understand what happened that night, you have to understand the world Bruce Lee was moving through in the early 1970s. He was not just a rising film star, he was a disruption, a philosophical earthquake walking around in a human body. The traditional martial arts community, especially in Hong Kong and southern China, had tolerated him as long as he stayed in his lane, a performer, an entertainer, someone who made Kung Fu look beautiful for Western cameras. He arrived 7 minutes early. He was already stretching when the 3 masters entered. The atmosphere, according to later accounts, was not hostile, not initially. There is a particular formality to these encounters in traditional Chinese martial arts culture, a civility that wraps around conflict like ceremonial silk. Tea may be served, pleasantries exchanged. The violence, when it comes, arrives not with shouting, but with quiet and weight. The elder spoke first. He was respectful in tone. He acknowledged Bruce Lee's accomplishments, his films, his growing school, his students. And then he moved to the point with the precision of a man who had been building to it for months. He said, in effect, that Bruce Lee was doing damage, not to individuals, to something larger. He was eroding the foundation, the secrecy that protected traditional knowledge, the hierarchy that ensured it was passed with care and responsibility, the cultural boundary that kept these arts sacred. Every interview Bruce gave, every time he called classical training dead patterns, another stone was knocked loose from a wall that had taken generations to build. The elder did not raise his voice. He didn't need to. Bruce Lee listened. He sat completely still during the monologue, not with the stillness of someone suppressing anger, with the stillness of someone genuinely listening. His eyes were calm. His hands rested open in his lap. When the elder finished, Bruce Lee nodded once, and then he said something that no one in the room expected. He agreed, not with the conclusion, but with the observation. He said yes, he was dismantling things. Yes, he was pulling at roots. Yes, this was deliberate. Because if the system cannot survive examination, then what exactly are you protecting? A wall built around emptiness is still just a wall. The challenger, the Eagle Claw Master, cut in here. His civility was thinner. He had come not for philosophy, but for demonstration. He said, essentially, show me. Not with words, with proof. If Jeet Kune Do was everything Bruce claimed, adaptive, formless, superior to classical training in actual combat, then prove it. Not on film, not in interviews. Here, now. He gestured to the training floor. The room shifted. The witness moved to the edge. He folded his hands. He watched. And Bruce Lee stood up. What followed next is where the accounts diverged slightly in detail, but never in outcome. The challenger moved first. He was not reckless, he was methodical. He came forward with controlled, probing steps, a half guard that showed his northern training, eyes measuring. He was testing range, getting a feel for how Bruce moved, how he breathed, where his weight sat. This was professional. This was the opening vocabulary of a man who had done this hundreds of times. Bruce Lee didn't move, not a step back, not a defensive shift in his stance. He just watched. The challenger threw a testing strike, a probing jab, not full commitment, a technical gesture designed to read response time, reaction type, defensive habit. What he got back was nothing he had prepared for. Bruce Lee slipped it, not sideways, not with a big dramatic lean, but with a movement so compressed it barely looked like movement at all. A micro adjustment, 3 inches, maybe 4. The fist passed close enough to brush air, and in the same breath, the same single unit of time, Bruce's right hand had already traveled. It didn't land. He chose not to let it land. He stopped it, deliberately, an inch from contact, and held it there for 1 second. 1 second of stillness with his knuckle hovering against the challenger's cheekbone. Then he stepped back, opened his hand, let the moment breathe. The room was completely silent. This was not a fight-ending blow. This was a sentence, a paragraph delivered in the language of timing and physics and 20 years of obsessive development. He was saying, "I was already here before you arrived." The challenger stood completely still, not frozen with fear, frozen with the specific paralysis that comes when a skilled man encounters something outside his map, when the territory doesn't match the knowledge you brought with you. He had trained for 36 years. He had been in real confrontations. He knew what it felt like to face someone dangerous. This was different. This felt like facing someone from a different category of dangerous altogether. The elder stood up from his position at the side of the room. He was watching Bruce Lee with an expression that the witness would later describe as something between confusion and recognition, as if he was seeing something he had once read about but never believed was real. Speed that exists in theory, in the old texts, in the training manuals of ancient masters, but that you assume has been lost to time and softness. He said, again, not as an order, almost as a request. Bruce Lee said nothing. He simply reset, returned to that open, casual stance of his, the one that looked barely like a stance at all, like a man standing in a kitchen deciding what to eat. Relaxed shoulders, soft knees, hands low. It looked like nothing. It was everything. The challenger came again, this time with more commitment, a combination, a leading strike to draw a response, a follow-up designed to capitalize on whatever defensive pattern emerged. It took 1.4 seconds. In 1.4 seconds, Bruce Lee moved twice, was in 3 different positions, and put the challenger's momentum into the floor. Not a throw, not a dramatic takedown, a redirection so precise and economical that the challenger found himself bent forward, off balance, with Bruce Lee's hand at the back of his neck applying the lightest possible downward pressure. Enough pressure to demonstrate the option, not enough to harm. He released him, stepped back, adjusted his collar. Somewhere in the room, someone exhaled. The elder did not call for a third exchange. He was a man who had seen enough. A lifetime in martial arts teaches you to read a situation accurately, to name what you are seeing without the distortion of ego. He was too old for distortion. He had come expecting to witness either a fraud or a capable practitioner. What he had witnessed was neither of those things. He crossed the floor, and he bowed. Not deeply, not theatrically. A single, clean, sincere inclination of the head that, in the context of everything he represented and everything that had been said before this moment, meant more than a trophy ever could. Bruce Lee returned it. The challenger had straightened, composed himself. He said nothing, but he bowed too. The bow of a man who has encountered the boundary of his map and decided that honoring it is the only sane response. The witness stood at the edge of the room, still watching, still silent. He would say later, to exactly one person and only once, that what he witnessed that night was not a man fighting. It was a man demonstrating a principle. The way a mathematician doesn't argue equations, they simply show them. True because they are true. Undeniable because mathematics doesn't care what you believe. That was Bruce Lee that night. He He wasn't trying to win, he was trying to communicate. And 3 grandmasters, men who had dedicated their lives to the pursuit of mastery, understood the communication. The meeting ended without ceremony. Tea was poured but barely touched. The 3 masters left in sequence, the witness first, then the challenger, then the elder last. The elder paused at the door. He turned back. He looked at Bruce Lee for a long moment, and he said, quietly, without drama, in the way that old men say true things, "You are not performing. I see that now." Then he left. Bruce Lee stood alone in the training hall for a few minutes after they were gone. He walked to the window, looked out over Kowloon, the lights of the city spreading out below like a circuit board, alive and humming with 10,000 invisible transactions. He picked up his jacket. He drove home. He didn't sleep well that night, not because of what happened in the training hall, because of what hadn't happened. He lay in the dark of his Hong Kong apartment while Linda breathed steadily beside him, and he ran the exchange again, not to celebrate it, not to analyze it strategically, to find the thing he missed, the gap, the place where his response had been a fraction too slow, a fraction too deliberate, a fraction too much of a decision rather than a pure reflex. He found it. 12 minutes into lying there, he found it. The second exchange, when he redirected the challenger's combination and controlled him to the floor, the touch at the back of the neck. Bruce felt it the moment he applied it, a hair's worth of tension in his wrist, a ghost of intention, a nearly imperceptible deliberateness that no one in the room would have noticed because no one in the room could see at the resolution he was seeing. But he noticed. He filed it, and then he slept. This is the part of the story that the mythology usually skips. The world wants Bruce Lee to have walked out of that training hall glowing, untouchable, a man who had once again proven what everyone already suspected, that he existed in a category apart, unreachable, a finished thing. But Bruce Lee was never a finished thing. That was the whole point. That was the point no one challenging him ever seemed to understand, and it was the reason every challenge ultimately failed before it began. The masters who came to that training hall in Kowloon came with an assumption baked into their logic that mastery is a destination, that you train for decades, arrive at expertise, and then defend it, that once a system is complete, the practitioner within it is also complete. Bruce Lee had decided at 25 that this idea would kill him, not metaphorically, literally. A fighter who believes he has arrived stops seeing, and a fighter who stops seeing is a fighter who gets hurt. He never stopped seeing. He never arrived. That night, he went back to the beginning, in the dark, with a ghost of tension in his wrist, and started over from there. Word of the meeting spread through Hong Kong's martial arts community within 2 weeks. Not explosively, not as a public announcement. This was not the kind of world where things were announced. It moved the way important things moved in that community, in layers, in carefully chosen conversations, in the spaces between what was said and what was meant. The first version of the story that circulated was careful and vague. 3 grandmasters had visited a private meeting with Bruce Lee. The meeting had been respectful. It had concluded without incident. No one who said this was lying. No one who heard it believed that was the whole story. By the 3rd week, the second version was circulating. This one contained more texture, the specifics of the challenger's combination, the micro-slip, the hand at the cheekbone, the elder's bow. By the 4th week, the story had acquired the additional gravity that comes when people who were not present begin adding details. In some versions, the challenger had been thrown across the room. In others, Bruce Lee had broken 2 bones in the challenger's wrist before anyone realized he'd moved. In one particularly dramatic retelling that reached as far as a training hall in Singapore, he had ended the confrontation in 4 seconds without leaving his original position. None of these additions were true. What actually happened was harder to explain than any of them, and therefore, to the people who'd witnessed it, infinitely more impressive. You can describe a man being thrown across a room. Anyone can see what that means. Try describing a man who stopped a strike so precisely that his knuckle created a shadow across another man's cheekbone at a distance of 1 inch and then stepped back and adjusted his collar. Try finding language for what that communicates. Try explaining why 3 grandmasters with a combined total of over 100 years of training walked out of a room quieter than they walked in, after watching a 135-pound man do almost nothing. The people who tried to explain it became the ones who spread it furthest, because they couldn't fully explain it, and partial explanations in that world carried more weight than complete ones. Complete stories are entertainment. Incomplete ones become legend. The challenger never spoke about it publicly, but he spoke about it privately, once. Approximately 2 years after the meeting, in the autumn of 1974, by which point Bruce Lee had been dead for 14 months, the challenger gathered his 6 most senior students in his training hall in Guangzhou for what he described as a technical discussion. He was not an emotional man. He did not traffic in anecdote or nostalgia. His teaching was precise, economical, demanding. He talked for 4 hours that session. At the end of it, in the last 10 minutes, he told them about the training hall in Kowloon. He told it plainly, without drama. He described the challenger's combination, his own combination, that he had thrown with full professional intention. He described the micro-slip, the compression of movement, the hand at the cheekbone. He described the specific sensation of encountering a speed that exists outside the range your nervous system has been calibrated to perceive, where by the time you register that something has happened, the something has already decided not to continue. He told his students what that felt like from the inside. Then he told them what conclusion he had spent 2 years forming from the experience. He said, "The most dangerous opponent is not the one who has mastered a style. It is the one who has dissolved the style. He has nothing for you to read, nothing to anticipate, nothing to prepare for. He is the water that takes the shape of your attack and is not there when your attack arrives." Then he returned to technical instruction. He never mentioned it again. His students did. The witness outlived Bruce Lee by 17 years. He died in 1990 at the age of 83. In the final year of his life, a researcher studying the history of Hong Kong's martial arts community sought him out for an interview. He gave the interview. He discussed many things: styles, histories, teachers he had known, the evolution of Kung Fu from a living tradition to a performance tradition during the post-war period. When the researcher asked about Bruce Lee, the witness was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I have watched many men fight. I have watched many men think. He was the only one I witnessed doing both at the same time, without the thinking slowing the fighting or the fighting interrupting the thinking. For most men, action stops thought. For him, they were the same action." The researcher pressed him. Was there a specific moment he remembered most clearly? The witness considered this. "The moment he stopped his hand," he said. "Any man can strike. Skill is in the strike. But the decision not to strike, the decision made inside a movement already launched, inside a fraction of a second, without slowing the movement, that is not skill. That is something else. I still do not have a word for what that is." He didn't elaborate. The researcher, to their credit, understood that elaboration would have been the wrong thing to ask for.
Linda Lee Cadwell would later describe the period of 1972 as one of the most inward years of Bruce's life, despite its outward intensity. The filming of Enter the Dragon, the proliferating challenges, the spreading reputation, the philosophical writing, the relentless physical training. She described a man who was increasingly disappearing into the work of becoming something he couldn't yet name. He was writing constantly, notebooks, margins, backs of envelopes, not writing in the way of someone documenting conclusions, writing in the way of someone in active dialogue with an idea that kept evolving faster than the words could follow. He wrote once in a note she found on the kitchen table one morning, "I am not trying to perfect a technique. I am trying to remove the distance between the intention and the execution. When the distance is zero, technique is unnecessary. The thing just happens. This is what I am after." He had underlined 0 3 times. He had drawn a circle next to it. Then he had crossed out the circle. What happened in that training hall above a Kowloon commercial building in the summer of 1972 was not in the end about a confrontation between 4 men. It was about a confrontation between 2 ideas. The first idea was ancient, and it was not wrong. It said, "Dedicate your life to one path. Go deeper than anyone has gone before you. Know your art so completely that it becomes your breath, your reflex, your skeleton." This idea produced the elder's iron hand, the challenger's surgical precision, the witness's 70 years of accumulated understanding. These were not small things. These were genuine human achievements at the outer edge of what discipline can build. The second idea was younger, and it was not arrogant, though it was often mistaken for arrogance. It said, "The path is not the destination. The style is not the art. The map is not the territory. Any system, however sophisticated, is still a container, and a fighter who is fighting from inside a container is fighting with walls. Remove the walls, not to destroy the system, to absorb it, to take every system you encounter and extract from it what is true and living, and discard what is ceremonial and dead, to become, through relentless investigation and relentless honesty, something that no single system can produce, a practitioner of the thing itself, rather than a practitioner of a particular language for the thing. This is what Jeet Kune Do actually was. Not a style, not a technique, not a collection of impressive physical skills, though it produced those as a byproduct. It was a philosophy of perpetual incompletion, a commitment to never arriving, an insistence that the moment you believe your cup is full, you have begun to empty the wrong thing. The masters who came to that training hall in Kowloon to challenge it came because they believed Bruce Lee was dismantling tradition. They left understanding that he was attempting something harder. He was trying to go beneath tradition, to the place tradition was pointing at before it calcified into tradition. Bruce Lee died 14 months after that meeting in the training hall. He was 32 years old. The footage was never released because there was no footage. 9 people knew the meeting happened. Over the following decades, 6 of them died without speaking publicly about it. The witness gave his single oblique comment in 1989. The challenger's private teaching reached the outside world through the second-hand accounts of his senior students 30 years after the fact. Only the elder's gesture survived with anything close to clarity. A single bow witnessed by 4 people in a room above a Kowloon commercial building that took approximately 2 seconds to complete and contained within it the full weight of what one master recognizes in another when he finally stops defending his map long enough to look at the territory. One bow. It was enough. Think about what Bruce Lee was really showing us. Not then, not in 1972, now. He was showing us that the limits we inherit from systems, from schools and styles and traditions and titles are real limits, but they are not permanent ones. That what looks like ceiling from inside a room is only ceiling if you accept the room's dimensions as fixed. He was showing us that the most dangerous thing you can do in any pursuit is to confuse the vehicle with the destination, the style with the art, the map with the territory behind the technique. He was showing us that speed is really about fast twitch muscle fiber. Speed is the elimination of hesitation, and hesitation is almost always the product of a gap between what you know and what you're willing to act on. Close the gap, remove the hesitation, and you do not become faster. You become present in a way that makes speed and slowness irrelevant categories. He was 132 pounds. He never won a sanctioned competition. He held no official title in any recognized organization. And 3 grandmasters with a century of combined mastery walked out of a private room in Kowloon in 1972 without speaking, because they had encountered someone who was not fighting from inside a system. He was fighting from inside the truth the systems were all reaching towards. That is the difference. That was always the difference. 3 masters walked into a room to challenge one man. Only one of them walked away calm, and that one person wasn't one of the 3. He drove home to his apartment. He lay in the dark. He found the ghost of tension in his wrist. He filed it. He started over. This is what mastery actually looks like. Not a destination, not a trophy, not a moment of arrival. A man lying in the dark at 32 with everything already proven, finding the one small thing that still needs work and going back to the beginning because of it. Be water. Not because the phrase is beautiful, though it is, because water has no ego invested in any particular shape. Water encounters the container, fills it, and remains entirely itself. It does not fight the walls of the container. It simply occupies the space the walls allow, and then finds the crack. Bruce Lee was the crack in every wall he ever entered, and no wall, not tradition, not size, not reputation, not the accumulated certainty of 3 grandmasters with iron hands and century-old lineages, could hold against it.